Sorry I'm late. I'm on Tico time. Here in Costa Rica, we have a thing called Tico time, and that means that time is not always a fixed thing. It means when you call for a plumber and he says, okay, I'll be out on Tuesday, and he comes 3 Tuesdays later. It's like, why are you mad? I'm here. But Tico time is that way. It works that way. It's the craziest thing. I had to make soup for my husband. He's got a cold. He's dying. He's got a cold. I have the same cold, but I'm still getting up and making soup and doing various things. It just is what it is. Hey, everybody. Hey, T King. Hey, Tracy. Hey, Shelly. Hey, Carol. I don't know if you guys have been watching some of the new shows that are coming on lately. I mean, this is pretty bad, but I'm so sick of the effery and the community and all the stupidity that I just want to talk about TV for a change. Begin to tell you, it's one of my favorite shows now. And I'll go and look at all the YouTubers talking about it afterwards and think about what's happened and watch it again and form more opinions. It's been one of those shows for me. Hey, Bliss, I like shows that challenge me to think. I like shows that give me an opportunity to form my own opinion that aren't necessarily totally black or white. And House of the Dragon is definitely that way. The YouTube drama, Tracy, yeah, I'm done with it. Hell with them. Hell with them all. Hell with them all. I've said what I'm going to say about uni, and I've said this repeatedly. Thank you for your service, however brief it was, but I'm not doing anything more than that at this point. But I'm not doing anything more than that at this point, except pointing people who look at stolen valor in his direction. Oh, hey, Fiona. Yeah. So all of that is done with. So yesterday, Netflix released a show called The Watcher. And I was interested to see this because I'm not that far into The Watcher, Shelley. I've watched like 3 episodes so far. And I'd read about it extensively when it was going down because it was so strange. It was right up there with a thing that happened that I swear I thought about writing a book about the Fishing Creek Meadow scandal in suburban Maryland. Nobody had letters saying, hey, we're watching you. We're watching you. But it was a crazy situation where there were nasty notes back and forth. There was all kinds of crazy stuff going on, accusations of child abuse, CPS called, lawsuits threatened, websites made. The Fishing Creek Meadow scandal was pretty huge. It was so huge that Vanity Fair did a long article on it. And it's one of those things I think is ripe for a book. I'm not sure that's me to write it, but it's one of those situations where it just needs to happen, I think. The Watcher is another one of those situations where there should probably be a book written too. If you haven't seen The Watcher, it's a show on Netflix about a true life event, which was this family bought this house in I want to say Newfield, but I'm not that sure that's a name. It was in a New Jersey town. New Jersey town by the name, let me double check, Westfield. I knew it was a field. Westfield, New Jersey, which is apparently a pretty pricey suburb. Another Duggar boy was just like Josh. Yeah, I addressed that the other day, Angela. I outed the names of the one she's picking on, that she makes claims that are just like Josh. She says that stuff all the time about Josiah. She hints that it's James. Sometimes she says it is Jeremiah. Those are the 3 that she likes to talk about after Josh. That I know there were gossip about them. There was some at Duggar Snark, but there's no real proof any of them ever did anything. You remember the event, not the place? Well, I For some reason, I thought it took place in Connecticut. I had that in my brain. I lived up there for like, hey, Nancy, for 16, 18 months. When I was like 19, 20 years old, I lived up in Stamford, Connecticut, which was mentioned. She doesn't have a secret source, not at all. Hey, M. Maloney. So the story is that this couple buys this house. They can't really afford the house. The house is kind of beyond their budget because they have a lot of things going on. So they take all their eggs, they take all of their investments, and they put it on the house to be able to afford it. And it's in this quite tony neighborhood in Westfield, New Jersey. And they start getting mysterious letters that are vaguely threatening. Speaking facetiously, yeah, she has her secret source. And there were so many weird, creepy neighbors that were acting weird and creepy that the family that actually bought the house never moved in because they received these letters when they were in the process of renovating it. Now, the television show has the family moving in and they're showing all kinds of crazy stuff happening. Her Fisher Price telephone is where she gets her info. That or her crystal ball. Oh, so I could see this. Can you imagine having her as a neighbor? No, Java man, I cannot. If I had her as a neighbor, she would be the neighbor that was terrorized to have a watcher because people would in the neighborhood would be watching her. And we've heard her say these things about her neighbors too. You know, I didn't exactly love all my neighbors in my Virginia town. I had a next door neighbor that I could not stand. It was a lady that taught sixth grade, fifth or sixth grade, who was just super obnoxious, but she never sent me letters saying that she was watching me or any of that. I think Jim Bob is creepy too. You and I are both on that. He is creepy. And I'm going to do a video maybe tomorrow where I'm going to talk about how Jim Bob and purity culture created Josh Duggar. Because you don't start to have those kind of problems unless something significant and negative happens in childhood or in your early adolescence. So I think there's something that probably traces back to Jim Bob and the whole religious organization. I went looking on Pathos for my article that I wrote about it, explaining why I thought Josh, what had happened. And it was a crazy article because I had people coming out of the woodworks to tell me I was defending Josh. I wasn't defending Josh. I was trying to explain how we got there because having been part of that kind of church, I know very well how we got there. We had a kid that I've talked about a bunch, and I've written in my book about the kid that at a conference on, oh, what was that? It was on deliverance ministry, got up and talked about his masturbatory fantasies, his masturbatory life, his porn addictions, various things. And everybody was just jaw dropped while he was doing this. Nobody tried to stop him. It was over the top, way too revealing. And I just wanted to tell the kid, you're perfectly normal. You're 14. Of course, you're going to want to do that stuff to yourself all the time and look at those pictures. It's pretty normal to have those feelings. It's not normal to demonize that and make that some kind. I remember Jim Bob's father on the show. He reminded me of someone who would hit his kids. Shelley, if he was involved with the same thing the Duggars are, then surely he would. That's considered to be godly in that group. So I've been looking to see if there's any religious significance to anybody or anything in the Watcher. And so far, I'm not seeing anything beyond, was the mention of the Methodist Church, was it? Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. But so far, there's none of that at least. So there's none of that stuff going on. And my understanding is it's going to get worse. People who've seen the entire series are telling me that I'm not going to be happy with the end. That could well be because I'm rarely happy with the ending of it. I'm rarely happy with the ending of anything. I was very unhappy with the ending on Game of Thrones. I was rather unhappy. Well, let me walk that back. I wasn't rather unhappy, but I was left somewhat disappointed by the ending of Casa de la Dragon, de Casa de Dragon, as they call it here, House of the Dragon, when they ended season 1 with the death of Lucerys and his dragon. I was rather bummed out. So I think, if nothing else, it's a cautionary tale about greed. What do I mean about greed? Well, this family put up everything to move to this right neighborhood where they thought that their kids would be protected, only to find that wasn't exactly so. Their next door neighbors were complaining about the piano noise, even though she hadn't even played her piano at that point. And the former tenant talked about some things that his neighbors were doing that sounded kind of like the cult. It sounded like a satanic one. And that was kind of strange. But episode 2 ended with the death of 2 major characters. I was rather shocked, because why would they bring these people on to be total a-holes if they were just going to turn around and kill them off right away? I've done a lot of reading on this case, and I think I'm going to have to go back and do a lot more, because there's some things that just don't fit. And I know it's fictionalized and they change a lot of things. We've seen that with Game of Thrones and so many others. But then they ended up dead. WTF. Yeah, I know. They brought them on and had them be extra nasty and watching and saying all kinds of threatening things, and then they took them out. And then there's the guy who is fully grown, but obviously some sort of intellectually challenged, who keeps showing up in their house and caught him in the dumbwaiter. When the kid was going to put, was it a weasel or a ferret? I guess it's a ferret, in the dumbwaiter and send it up and down, and he opened the dumbwaiter. I was like, kid, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. That's how a lot of horror movies start. The family who in real life bought the house never once lived in it, unlike the show. And they had a hell of a time getting rid of it. They tried to sell it. They kept lowering the price. They ended up losing about $400,000 when they finally did sell the house. And they lost some money and scared off a lot of potential buyers by telling them the history and showing them the letters, which I think is a responsible thing to do. You have to do that when you sell a house, and there's all kinds of weirdness about it. One of the houses that we had looked at buying in Culpeper before we moved there in Virginia was an old house in the historical district. Later, I found out that house had a reputation for being haunted. I'm glad we didn't get it. For Josh, it was always the story when they found him in the bathroom doing what adolescent boys do and punish him for that by tying his hands in front of him for the day. Java, man, that is disgusting and sick and twisted. Even the little guy that yelled masturbate that I was talking about Old Church, his parents didn't punish him. Nobody should ever punish their kid for having normal development. Maybe explain why you lock the bathroom door, or you don't do that around everybody, but you don't do that. In fact, it was kind of funny when that happened at the old church. I had to have a long conversation with my son and daughter about it, because my son was like 11, 12. My daughter was younger than that. My daughter didn't quite understand what we were talking about. My son sure did, and ran away screaming with his hands over his ears. Mom, stop it. So I'm going to go back to House of the Dragon next. I've been noticing with Allison and Rhaenyra, the 2 female leads, that it fits a lot of theology. It fits a lot of quiverful kind of theology. You've got Allison, the good girl, the one that has stayed with the faith of the 7, who's faithful and devout, even though her kids are all kinds of screwed up, and thinks you got to do it a certain way. You got to do what you're told. You got to do what they set you out to do. And then you have Rhaenyra, who reminds me in some important ways of our dear departed, beloved Khaleesi, her offspring. and years beyond. The house I grew up in until I was 8 in Long Island was haunted. She was very protective over me and a sibling who I don't claim. Nancy, that sounds like a positive one at least. One comedian said that his parents told him that he would go blind if he did that. His response was, but I can still find it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're still going to find that. So, ooh, I wish I could watch House the Dragon. I have a good friend that reviews it. Nancy, it's really awesome. I've got to say that. And the attention to detail. I'm glad that HBO has renewed it. But like I said, you got your two female leads who are on opposite sides of the fence. Dutiful Allison, who's following the religion, and then you've got Rhaenyra that just wants to burn it all down and be queen. Her father named her the heir, and Allison misunderstood what her husband was saying as he was dying. He was actually talking about a prophecy called the Prince Who Was Promised, which you hear a lot about in Game of Thrones. But his wife knew nothing about the prince who was promised because at that point, only kings and queens who were going to take the mantle to rule the seven kingdoms would hear about the prophecy. It was something passed on from king to king to king to almost queen. And so Allison assumed when he started talking about Amon, not Amon, Amon's older brother, that he was talking about her son, the first, not the first Targaryen in the area. And so I thought it was really interesting, and I had to add that to my book I'm writing because it was a good example of how sideways prophecy can go. And we know in Quiverful, there's always going to be prophecies. My old church, there was prophecies about everything. My husband was given a prophecy that he would be like a blocker in somebody's marriage. I was given a prophecy that I would always be somebody who I could access the depths of God's glory, whatever that means. And so the prophecies were vague. They all fit with the Barnum statements. So they were just grasping for information, trying to make them more specific. It's a tool that cold readers use, is what was used. Oh, hey, Kara. So all these prophecies and things they're not always what you're hearing. And I thought this was like an excellent, excellent, excellent picture of that in the House of the Dragon, when Allison completely misunderstood what her husband said and decided to make her son king as a result. Her son, who is very badly behaved, apparently. And they had a really graphic, disturbing scene in the show of children with their teeth filed at points fighting each other like you'd have cockfights in South Louisiana. They were pitting these children against each other and betting on it. And apparently that's where her son liked to hang out. And he had one of his illegitimates there. So what a crazy show, right? But I can't wait till season 2 now because the war has started and we'll get to see the Dance of the Dragons. Is it out there watching The Handmaid's Tale? I'm having to pick it up in clips because Hulu is not here at all. And for some reason, Hulu has decided to reject my VPN connection as being overseas, even though I've got it running through Los Angeles. And I can't see it this year. So the only way I'm able to see it is in clips. I have a girlfriend that sends me clips of it all the time of the parts she wants to talk about because she's still working through her experience in her fundamentalist Quiverful church. And there's a lot of it that brings up things, just like I was picking up on that in House of the Dragon. I always say Game of Thrones again. I almost said that. I was picking it up. So there's a lot of shows that are out there now. I went ahead and saved a lot of them on my Netflix list because We haven't had Netflix here. Netflix was not available in Costa Rica, and they would never accept my VPN. I tried. God knows I tried. My kids and I used to share an account, and I would watch a lot of things. So I had to use pirate TV through my Fire Stick to watch things like Tiger King. And when we got to season 2 of Tiger King, and they came here to Costa Rica to investigate, like I said, Bagaces is about an hour from here. We go there and swim in the waterfalls there, the catarata. It's the Spanish word for waterfalls. Netflix is now cracking down on password sharing. Java man, I heard that, so we're not sharing an account with them anymore. Costa Rica, they finally added Costa Rica on their list, so I just went ahead and signed up for a normal account because I had a feeling they were going to do that. And since I'm in Costa Rica, I might as well sign up for an account. So I'm probably going to sign up for another streaming service. I would have signed up for Hulu too, because I used to have Hulu and Netflix in the States. But Hulu is not available here, and that is really stupid. They're missing a lot of people. There is such a heavy gringo population here, like myself, that would be using that. Now, we do get all of the regular channels here. So if you ever come here, you're going to get all the same channels that you got in the States, all of them, with one big exception. Your internet and cable package here will cost a fraction of what it costs in the States. I have all the same channels, all the hundreds upon hundreds of channels that I had from Comcast in the States. It was running me $140 a month with my internet. My internet and my cable package is running me under $60, and I have high-speed internet. And I may not have all of the HBOs, but I have a pretty good package with the different things going on. So it's really a bargain for here. And the thing that's really interesting, you can change the languages. You can go in there and change the languages, watch it in Spanish, you can watch it in English. Some of the channels you can watch in German or French or whatever. And one of the things you do is put subtitles in various languages. I rarely watch Netflix, but I do love Cobra Kai. I haven't seen that one yet. I haven't seen that one, but like I said, I've got Netflix, and I'm just now starting to scroll through and see what all there is. I'm going to go back and rewatch a couple episodes of Tiger King because it deals with Bagaces, which like I said, is where the catarata is, so that we swim in sometimes. It's a small, little, tiny, remote town where supposedly Carol Baskin's husband owned a ton of property, and she claims that he went. There is no hint that he is there whatsoever. I talked to people there. He's not there. He is not in Bagaces under any name. But the episodes that dealt with his disappearance in season 2 and the investigation by the Costa Rican government, I couldn't get translations. It was just all in Spanish when the Spanish speakers were talking for the Spanish. But if I watch those 2 episodes on Netflix, at least I'll be able to translate this time. I'll be able to give me an English subtitle, and it will show. My Spanish I understand a fair amount. I speak, but the problem with local speakers is they will talk like this, and they'll talk so fast I can't understand what they're saying. They're selling stuff, kind of like a auctioneer. And I'm having to repite, por favor, because I don't get every word. There's a new one called Tubi or something. I saw that one too, the Tubi. I used to have it on my Fire Stick, I believe. It's so good. If you've ever liked Karate Kid, you'll love it. I'll have to look. He was eaten. Tracy, I believe that too. I don't think he's here. She claims that Homeland Security told her he was here in Costa Rica. The Costa Rican authorities say, no, he's not here. One of the guys who was his translator claims that Carol Baskin's husband brought big boxes of cash to Costa Rica and only used banana strips. Maybe back in the day you could use banana strips and avoid the impuesto, but not now. So I don't think that he's here. I know the way the bank accounts work here. If you bring in any money, more than what they say you can bring in as a gringo, because they'll put limits on it, they're not just going to let you deposit $1 million in cash. You have to show them where that money came from. And so I'm not buying Carol Baskin's story for any reason whatsoever. Gator food, yeah. Tiger food. We should ask KJ to translate it for us. The Java Man. Yeah, put that Spanish degree to work. I got to admit, I'm curious about the year she spent in Spain. I would love to be able to pick her brain about that. But when I ended the relationship, I ended that. I had no idea. No idea that that's what her degree was in. Unless you give them part of the 1 million. No, Java Man, not even then. To do one of the federal banks here, the banks that are connected to the government that guarantee your money, just like the FDIC in the States, they make you prove where every penny comes from. We went through that when we first got here. We were lucky because we were living in Copa-Dota and my husband was working at the school teaching kids. We were able to apply and get a bank account that would let us move money back and forth. Not all gringos are allowed to do that. We had to have somebody who was a bank member who'd been here a long time to vouch for us. So we got our landlord to vouch for us. And that opened the door. We've been able to bring money back and forth, but the thing is you had to be able to prove that money, where it came from. We had to prove where every penny of it came from. We had to provide a couple of years of tax documents, of what else? Bank statements, broker statements, all sorts of stuff before they let us bring it in. So there may have been corruption in the banks some years back, but there's not now because there have been so many people that have tried to launder drug money here. And that was one of the reasons why the U.S. government tried to take out Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega, because he was supposedly laundering drug money for Americans. I don't know, but I know at one point they were saying Jimmy Swaggart was laundering money through him. That's kind of strange. I read that article years ago. I was like, what? So no Handmaid's Tale fans out there? I'm still trying to piece it all together. Now that we're beyond all the books and June has been back to Toronto with Luke. I don't know. It seems to me like they have gotten kind of strange and now they're just trying to wrap everything up. So much for my dream of robbing a bank and moving to Costa Rica. Tracy, yeah, you can't do that. They're going to say, hey, how did you get this money? You got to show us the origin point where the money came from. And my daughter worked at a bank for a while as a teller, and she has told me some things about it. It's really hard to rob a bank these days and get away with it. Almost impossible. The FBI has developed so many tools for chasing bank robbers. I would not recommend that as a career path at all. With Noriega, remember Achy Breaky Heart and other songs rated as weapons grade. Yeah, I remember that. I remember, and that's not the first time the government has done that. Our government loves to do that. That's one of their dumb go-to moves. I don't know if you guys remember it, but back in I think it was 1988, there was a Mormon polygamist that was holed up on his compound, would not come out, that the feds wanted him out. He had bombed a Mormon church in Marion, Utah, I think it was. Nobody was in it. No one was hurt. It just blew the building up. And the feds were after him hardcore. And he stayed in his little homestead like a month, 6 weeks. And one of the things they did to him is the same thing they did with Manuel Noriega. They blasted. No, it wasn't the Jeffords. It was some guy named Adam Swap. On his father-in-law's farm. His father-in-law was what was that guy's name? John Singer. research singer sometime. He was one of the crazy out there ones. The guy they shot. Yes, they shot him at the end and ended it, but they used music, they used loud noises, they used flashbangs, loud lights to try and force him out of the house. And none of it worked. Finally, they got the guy because he came out to feed the goats and they shot him. He had killed a federal agent who was going around with a dog sniffing around one day. So that kind of added to the charges. One dead agent, one bombed out Mormon church. And there's kind of an interesting end note to that. He went to jail for a long, long time, Adam Swap, and he's out now. I sometimes creep on his Facebook. It's fascinating because he got religion in church. He became a Christian and he switched from fundamentalist Mormonism to John Piper and fundamentalist Christianity. I actually kind of feel afraid for him because he is hardcore Piper supporter. And if you don't know who John Piper is, John Piper runs the what was the name of his ministry? The biblical something or other of God, of manhood and womanhood, the Biblical Institute, maybe. He also runs a blog called Desiring God that's got some really crazy stuff in it. And he runs a Bible college. Adam Swap ended up going to the Bible college and getting his degree and becoming a pastor of some non-denominational church out in Utah now. He seems to be living a normal life now, which has got to be the first for him. So weird. So there was actually a TV movie that was made about the singer swap controversy and what happened. It's called Siege at Marion, Line of Duty. Not a particularly good movie, but it does give you an interesting look at what went down there. So I like weird movies too. I think one of the things I am the most excited about with Netflix is they've done a series on Sisi. You may not know, she was Empress Elizabeth of the Holy Roman Empire. I guess it was the Austrians. Hungary. And she was executed in the weirdest way. Somebody just walked up to her and plunged a knife in her heart and she died instantaneously. But everybody says she was a really wonderful lady who was just quite shy. So I want to see that. And I want to see all of the adaptations of all of the different Jane Austen, everything. That's going to be my next thing that I'm going to look at on Netflix. I'm going to have to do that to wash the disturbing images from The Watcher out of my brain, I think, before I take another look at Tiger King. Okay, you guys, as you can hear, I'm kind of struggling to breathe today. I'm going to go ahead and go. I just wanted to jump on here real quick and talk about that. And just a little aside, yesterday, man, I almost walked away from the internet altogether yesterday. I went into Aaron's live stream, and I like Aaron. Aaron, I don't always see eye to eye over everything, but I like Aaron, if that makes any sense. We're both cool enough with each other so that if we don't agree, it doesn't turn into fisticuffs and name calling like most of the drama. But it was interesting. She had a lady on there as one of the watchers that was a fan of Dearest Catherine, who was very nasty. And I was just despairing of ever coming back on here. I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to keep talking to people? Do I want to just stick my head down and write my book? What do I want to do here? So last night I laid in that bed and had a long think about it. I'm still here. We'll see. Love you guys. Have a great day. Try not to engage in any of the dumb drama that's going on.